Logitech's in a tough spot with the G502. The G502 is one of those mice in which new features are rarely appreciated and big changes are usually scorned. It's an elephant in mouse design, but at the same time, due to its unwavering, unchanging nature, an icon. So successful at launch that it has warranted little updates since 2014. This consistency has actually resulted in the G502 building a very large, very loyal, but also very stubborn fan base. Like Zowie mice, the Logitech G502's success is partly because of this unchanging nature. So for any new models with new tech and new features and new changes, Logitech has to tread lightly. Change too much and you offend the loyal fan base. Change too little and people call your product a lazy cash grab. So with the G502X Plus wireless, this new flagship G502, did they tread this line perfectly or did they screw up? Let's start with the weight. At 100 grams without the cable, it's technically only 10 grams lighter than the last G502, which us mouse nerds might hate. The G502 loyalists will absolutely celebrate, though I think some might still think it's a little too light. The extra weight does mean that the G502X has space to keep a lot of the luxuries an ultralight mouse can never. Build quality is rock solid with zero creak or flex, and it keeps a big battery with excellent battery life despite its excellently bright, saturated and punchy looking RGB. Like the old G502, the top body and most of the body is covered in this matte plastic that feels reasonably grippy. And the sides have this rubberized, texturized coating just like you find on older G502s, though slightly different, but it feels basically the same. Extremely comfortable and grippy in the hand. The sensor and mice feet, just like on every G502 ever, is still basically the best you can find on any gaming mice at launch, with Logitech's latest and greatest hero sensor and light speed tech being implemented here in the G502X. Plus, measurements from many reviewers indicate that click latency and sensor latency is not at all an issue, and as good as the G Pro X Superlight, which is expected. The button layout is still the same as former G502s, so nothing new here, with nice buttons on the left of the left click, two thumb buttons on the left for your thumb, alongside a big vertical thumb button, which is a staple of the G502's design. But there is a slight change here in that you can customize the shape and size of this vertical thumb button, so you can have it bigger or smaller and just switch it out magnetically because it comes in a box, which is a nice little bit of customization they've added. What's changed though is subjectively good or bad depending on who you ask. The design has been reasonably reworked, with the loss of glossy bits for a slightly cleaner matte overall design, and the DPI indicator on the left, which I personally like the look of, is gone, replaced completely by this massively big RGB light strip. There's no more weights that you can add on the bottom, only a magnetic puck, which is useful for wireless charging and a couple of grams of extra weight. But knowing that some people like the G502s running at 150 and 160 grams, this might be still a bit too light, considering the 502X Plus the heaviest possible puck for light speed charging adds up to maybe 115 to 120 grams. And for those people, you probably will be better off served by using the older G502 Lightspeed. The shape also has a slight but noticeable change. It has been shortened at the clicks and widened there too, which, to be honest, is a slight difference. The bigger change with the shape is the angle at which the G502 is tilted. The new X is a little flatter. With the old G502, you feel like your hands tilted more like this. With the new 502, it's a little bit more flat. I like this because it gives me more space for my pinky and my fourth finger to basically rest on the right side. And considering this is an ergo mouse, it's very nice to have that space to put your fourth and your pinky finger. It's a completely subjective thing. I think the reason Logitech is still selling their G502 and not completely discontinuing it is because they know this change in shape is going to offend some people. If you prefer the old G502 shape, I personally can see why. The scroll wheel is a massive change though, and I think some people might actually be sad about this because it's changed from the original large clunky metal one to one that is basically the same wheel you find on the MX Master series. It still retains the excellent hyper scroll for scrolling through Excel spreadsheet, but it's no longer the same tall, very protruding metal wheel that you find on the old G502s, instead replaced with a plastic one covered in a rubberized material. I personally think this is a welcome change because I thought the old scroll wheel was too high to move my finger, but I think that metal scroll wheel was very iconic, very unique, and also screamed excellent build quality, which is why so many people liked it in the first place, and I'm sure many people will be sad to see it go. This new scroll wheel is definitely not bad though, and I think it's neither a downgrade or a upgrade. It's just different. All in all then, the G502X Plus. Is it worth it? Well, it is a pretty expensive gaming mouse, and if you already have a perfectly working G502 Lightspeed that you enjoy, it definitely isn't worth the upgrade. If you're coming from an older Proteus Core, Proteus Hero, or basically anything that is a bit older, then the G502X Plus seems like a pretty reasonable upgrade with a couple of nice tweaks that you might enjoy, mainly the fact that it's wireless. Also, if what you are looking for is just the best ever G502, then I guess the G502X Plus is a great choice as well, since it is really the best ever G502 that Logitech has ever made, at least on the specs and performance front. But if you're on a tighter budget, I really think that picking up an older G502 Lightspeed is probably a good idea, since you get similar features and it's a lot cheaper. Though you lose out on certain upgrades or possibly downgrades, depending on who you ask, on the G502X. So what do you think? Would you get a G502X Plus? Would you get an older G502 Lightspeed? Or are you a lightweight mouse nerd like me and you'll get something that's super light like a DevFeather V3 Pro or a G Pro X Super Light? Thank you guys so much for watching. Like and subscribe.